Hello, and welcome to the Building Brands podcast. My name is Braden Popp, and I'm host of today's episode in the Policy and Profit series. Today on the show, I am pleased to welcome Allison de Paoli, founder of Altique. Allison, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with
Awesome. Perfect. Allison, I wanted to dive in just straight into your brand and the business that you founded, particularly in the health insurance space, which is more of a traditional field. People have their own kind of mindset about health insurance. But you described Altique as more of a modern or forward thinking alternative to traditional brokers. So, what inspired you to take that different approach and how has it shaped your brand?
So we are an independent boutique firm. So we're not really tied closely to any one carrier or vendor. I mean, obviously we have carriers and vendors we prefer, but because we don't have the same financial ties that most large brokerages do, it means we're independent to do some things that are a little bit more creative and turn that healthcare spend into something that works for the employer rather than taking a cookie cutter thing and saying, here you go. We can do all kinds of unique things. And a lot of times people love to hear about all the unique things. They don't necessarily want to do all the unique things. Or they may want to do one thing and then maybe in a year or two they want to try another. And that's okay because we create our own 3 to 5 year strategies that are guided by the client and not our needs, then that works better for the client.
I think that's awesome. And I think, yeah, myself coming from a marketing background, we're always looking to solve problems for the clients that we're serving and the problems that our clients are trying to solve for their clients, right?
Mhm.
And so it sounds like that's the approach that you're taking as well, where you're working in a collaborative way and you're trying to solve those problems. So when you talk about helping employers fix what's broken in health insurance, what are some of the biggest pain points that you typically see, and how does your team go about solving those?
So the pain points are fairly typical across the board. It costs too much. Well, we all know that.
Yep.
But what has been happening over the last few years is that not only does it cost too much, but employers are starting to see the problems that their employees are having accessing care. They're seeing people have to wait 2 and 3 and 4 weeks to get to the doctor. Now, if you have the flu in 4 weeks, you're better or you're dead, right? So that's not really all that helpful, right? And then you see a lot of the result of that is higher emergency room usage and higher urgent care usage,
Mhm.
right? So if you can create a shortcut to get people to the doctor, you lower those other costs. And it is less expensive to go to the doctor than it is to go to the emergency room or the urgent care.
Right.
Right? So an employer won't understand necessarily why, but they will see the result. They will see that people are paying copays are 250, 300, $500 or even $50 and they're seeing people not take their medication. And they may or may not see how that affects their claims,
I
right?
see.
Like we can see if they're self-funded or even level funded, we can see how that affects their claims, but they don't know how to look at that. So we teach them how to look at that. And when you can address those kinds of issues, because there's 100 of those issues, right? Then you can start to improve the financial performance of the plan. And then you can you can start to help people get what they need. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
absolutely. That make no, that's great, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Solving those pain points is a challenge, and you're the expert in that field, which allows whenever you're working in a collaborative way, you're able to bring that expertise to your clients, right? Um, Now, from a marketing standpoint, then comes the great question. You have this great service, you have a great, product, and you have the ability to customize your plans and all of that. But then comes the marketing part. How do you communicate that to the client, to the prospect, to really get them on board and believe what you're saying, right? So, you've used video. You've mentioned you've used video in the past. What other ways have you implemented that message? How has video been beneficial for you, or what have you learned from the different tactics you've been trying throughout the years?
So it took us a long time to kind of figure out what worked for us. Um, Video works very well. I think video works very well in general. I also think that my audience doesn't necessarily want to hear me, so we have to watch and make sure that all of our stuff is short and well captioned. So, the my energy about a subject, I think one of the highest performing pieces of content we had for a long time was when I got really very irritated about an insurance company and a contract issue. And I just went off. And we sent it out, and those get posted where sound is off. I'm not sure anybody ever put the sound on, but I was
Oh,
clearly I was emoting frustration. And I think whatever emotion that is, people engage with that.
right.
And we also talk a lot about things that we have done that have a consequence, good or bad, that is not always initially apparent. One of the things that has been really intriguing to people is we helped a mid-sized employer with about 700 employees install an on-site clinic that is staffed by a physician. And I know this is going to get a little bit in the weeds, but an employer of that size normally doesn't have the budget to staff a clinic for 40 hours a week with a physician.
Hmm.
And we worked really hard with a local clinic provider to make that work and have a good physician and do all the checkbox things, right? So we did all of that. The one thing that we did that was almost an afterthought was create a metric with the employer's input where we tracked every encounter that the clinic had, every in-person encounter, because there are a lot of encounters at the clinic that are either video, text, or on the phone. And we assigned every in-person clinic visit a value of an hour. And we assigned every out of clinic, went to another doctor, a 4 hour time window. And the productivity savings was $267,000 in the first year. And it was probably higher than that because most clinic visits are not an hour. Your first one might be, but after that, they're probably 20 or 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes if something is going on, right?
Right.
So that is a totally unintended and wonderful consequence.
Hmm.
And so sometimes serendipitous things like that happen. When we can source a medication, we recently took on a new client and we won the case because they were paying about $16,000 for a drug that they should be paying seven for. And there's not a lot of people that know how to do that. For us, we're steeped in that. It's very easy. I mean, one phone call and
Right.
said, can you source this? What's your cost for this? And they were like, our cost is this. And I was like, okay, thanks. And that is the cost. And the member is getting her medication and she's getting what she needs and the employer's paying less than half. Those are all things that until you dig in and understand what's going on, you don't know that. You don't know that you can solve that problem. But that is meaningful for any employer, let alone an employer of, 150 people.
No, absolutely. I think what you're hitting on there is the fact that y'all can identify what's really going on and y'all
Mm-hmm.
can help support businesses with reality. And I think even your marketing that you mentioned, like the fact that one of your most successful videos was you getting fired up about a certain company, and people seeing that and resonating with it. It
Yeah.
talk like whenever we're thinking about how do we speak to the consumer, it's so important that you're in touch with your target consumer and that you understand the pain and the struggles that they're going through, and the messaging that you implement in a marketing strategy, or even just the approach you take as a business. It's so important to align with reality, right? You can run a marketing campaign or you can work with a business, but if you don't truly understand the problems of your clients or your target
Correct.
prospects, it's always going to fall flat. And so that's why I think the organic video you released of you just being fired up, that's probably why it did so well, is because it resonated with people. Would you
Correct.
agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. And I think we also we use some analytics for our social content. So we see what people are interested in. They're interested in paying less for prescriptions. That is a
Yeah.
hot every time we talk about that, like that is what engages people. But that is a very public, for lack of a better word, topic now, right? It's top of
Right.
mind as a society. So when people hear that they can pay, what do you mean we can pay less? Well, this is how. Now, like all good home improvement projects, if you want to fix this thing, you got to fix these other 12 things first, right?
Right.
So it's a whole different conversation, but people are very interested in how to get to care, get the right care. We've been using a skeleton image, a pink skeleton. That may sound totally ridiculous, but it seems to engage people.
Right. And I think what that does is it kind of catches people off guard, but in the same way, it's kind of like, oh, that's what you're kind of feeling internally. You're feeling that a little bit, right?
Yes.
Like this is the struggles I've been having, and this company gets it with that just simple interaction, like a pink skeleton, kind of
Yep.
out there and random, right? But I think that also kind of ties us into my next question as well. Obviously, y'all are a very professional brand. Y'all operate professionally with your clients, and you solve problems very professionally. You have that expertise as well. But like you mentioned, there's some snark built into that brand as well. There's snark. There's a little bit of sarcasm, some little jabs here and there. Um, how has that kind of evolved over time? What kind of was the inspiration behind that? And and how do you keep that authenticity feel through that part of your brand?
So I write most of my content, not all of it, but almost all of it I write. And I'm fairly snarky and I'm fairly sarcastic. And I have learned that people like that or they don't. And I'm good with that. But I think that you should know who is walking in your door. So there is no question for anybody that finds their way to me and has done a cursory check of who we are that I am snarky and sarcastic.
Right.
It's just there. And it's very off-putting to some people. And
Mm.
okay, that kind of hurts my feelings sometimes, but that's okay. We have a very snarky, sarcastic bunch of clients who are really a whole lot of fun. And they're really trying to do good consistently. They are trying to do the right thing for the people that work with them. And we do the same thing for our team, and we do the same thing for our clients. So it's not as strange as it sounds. Um, we also tend to work with people who are very, they want to know, they don't necessarily want to go all the way down the rabbit hole, but they want to know somebody went down the rabbit hole. So when they come with this one-off question that, we have an answer for that because we already checked, right? Or
Mm.
we found a better way to do it. And this is why we're doing it. We have a client who is, they're fully insured with a large carrier, and this particular member has a rather serious illness, and there is going to be some change in her medication. So even though the employer, it's not covered as part of the plan, the employer is paying for some advanced diagnostic testing for her. I love that we have a resource for them, and I
Right.
love that they're willing to do that. That is the care of people they are responsible for, right? And I don't like the idea that employers are families. I don't believe that, but they are communities.
Mm.
And I think taking care of your community is an important thing, and this is an employer who's going above and beyond to do that. And they could have very easily said no. And I was like, it's not that expensive to do, and it can be a huge value to the member.
Absolutely. And it's what's coming in my mind is the word authenticity, right? You can say what your culture is, you can say what your values are, and people have excellent authenticity radars, whatever that
Yes,
means,
they do.
right? They do. So, like, if you're putting a brand out there that's not authentic to who you are, people are going to see that right away.
Yes,
And
they
if
are.
you're putting a service out there that's not authentic to who you are, um, that's going to hurt you right away. And not only is it so important on a marketing strategy to be authentic, but once you are authentic, you're going to also attract people who are authentic as well. People
Yes.
who see the authenticity, they're like, man, I want to work with that person. And then you're going to have great clients because um, they recognize the authenticity that you're bringing to the table and the cultures line up perfectly, right? So I think that that's super critical just to kind of not only in business but in life as well.
Yes.
Being authentic, being who you are, and finding who you are can really help drive you professionally as well. And it sounds like Allison, like the Altique brand, it really is an extension of who you are and who your personality is and what your end goals are. Um, and that's how you've stood out in your industry. I kind of want to segue into like how in a traditional injury like industry like health insurance, it's kind of the standard process. Well, you get your license, you start trying to sell, and you struggle, or maybe you
Yep.
go work for a larger firm. How have you um, worked to stand out in such a traditional industry? What's one marketing or brand building lesson you've learned that you wish you knew earlier?
I tried to be very proper early on and very polished and um, corporate.
Hmm.
And that doesn't work. It just doesn't. And I'm certainly not Coca-Cola and I'm not Nike, so I don't have that I don't have that audience. I don't have the ability to attract that kind of audience. So I had to find a way to just be who I was. And I was very, very cautious of that for a long time because I get a lot of feedback that I'm too direct, I'm so direct, I don't suffer inaccuracy lightly. And I, I just feel that the more I embrace that and the more I am that, I wish I would have known that 3 years ago or 4 years ago. Like we would have grown faster.
Hmm.
And also to focus on solving the problem and not I am never going to compete with a large agency. We don't do the same thing. So I may
Right.
as well be very clear about what it is and how we do it. And our goal with employers is to create something that works for them, not for the
Right.
employer next door because they may need something else. And that is the focus. And I have a client that one employee in the leadership told the other employee, well, I actually think she gives a shit about us. And I know that's not a very polished and polite thing to say, but for me, that was like the best compliment we could have ever gotten. So the more I step into that, like we actually care about what happens to our plan members, not just the employer who's writing the check, then that is who we are and people see it.
Absolutely. I think that's a great spot to kind of end our conversation here. The key takeaway I have: authenticity in your marketing strategy, authenticity in your business practices is going to be the key to success. Um, Allison, is there anything else that you'd like to add or anything else you'd like to share? If not, where can people find you online?
So I think that marketing is going to become ever more important, and authentic marketing is going to be even more important to be true to who you are. And, I think AI is coming for a lot of
Yes.
activity, but they cannot replace a person, and they cannot be human. They just can't. So
Right.
embrace that. So, and as I'm on LinkedIn, Allison Cohen de Paoli. Our website is Altique, ALTIQE.com. You can reach out to us there. And if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.